Helios Education Foundation is squarely focused on ensuring that students have success in post-secondary education across the states of Florida and Arizona. Helios Education Foundation is very committed to equitable education opportunities. What's great about our Florida Future Billions report, individual communities, individual counties will actually be able to look at the data specific to their county. So in Miami-Dade, if you increased college enrollment by 10%, you would see a $2.4 billion benefit to your community. Can you imagine what you could do with $2.4 billion? Yes.
Hi, we've got Dr. Stacy Baier with the Helios Education Foundation. We're glad to have Dr. Baier with us today. We're going to be talking about educational equity. We are Opportunity Miami. We are the future-focused initiative for the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, and we imagine the Miami of 2040, what it should be, what it should look like, and we think about that across three pillars: sustainability and resilience, entrepreneurship, and talent. And of course, today we're going to be talking about talent. Welcome, we're glad to have you.
Thank you so much. We really are appreciative of the opportunity to come speak with you.
Before we get into where Florida, and more specifically Miami-Dade County stands, can you first introduce us to the Helios Education Foundation and your role in our state?
Sure. So Helios Education Foundation is squarely focused on ensuring that students have success in post-secondary education across the states of Florida and Arizona. But we recognize to accomplish that, we have to invest along the entire education continuum. It's not enough to just start when kids are graduating from high school and beginning to think about where they might enroll in post-secondary ed. There are really three pillars to our work. We look at third grade reading proficiency and ways that we can ensure that by the time students are completing the third grade, they have the skills and knowledge to be able to read proficiently. Our second pillar is college enrollment. We are looking at ways to help advance the opportunity for students to actually transition from high school into post-secondary education. Specifically, we look deeply at opportunities for accelerated coursework, so dual enrollment, AP classes, IB, and we're also looking at ways that we can support students while they're in high school around those critical decisions that they can make while they're still in high school that will lead to post-secondary education success, which for us is degree attainment. So in high school, they can be completing things like the FAFSA, which is a key indicator that students will actually leave high school and enroll in post-secondary education. We look at things like helping students make the right choices around college. You know, oftentimes students struggle to understand what is the best option for them. They may go with the close option. And then, of course, we have a pillar that's dedicated to post-secondary education success. And what we know is, while financial aid or financial assistance, we do a lot of scholarships, is critically important for so many students. They also need support while they're in school, particularly for first-generation college students who are navigating the college experience for the first time. You know, there are some critical decisions that have to be made along the way, and having those appropriate student supports while they're in university or college or whatever post-secondary ed pathway they take is going to be important to their completion, because sometimes it could be something as simple as, you know, not applying for your major. And all of a sudden now you're set back by an entire semester. If you haven't gone through this process before, if you don't have people sort of guiding you along the way, some of those critical decisions can be something that delays your ability to complete your degree. And we know that students who take longer to achieve their degree, you know, potentially end up stopping out. In our work at Helios, not only are we focused on grant making, but we don't just view ourselves as a grant maker. We support research in this area. All the decisions that we're making are informed by data, but we want to make sure that research is accessible to all of the communities where we're serving, so that they too can be making better decisions about the types of work that they're putting forward or investing in. We also have a public policy area that we support. Helios is committed to systems change. So it's not just about funding, you know, particular pilot projects or demonstrations, but when our evaluations and research show that there may be some policy changes that would impact the success of students, we also look to advocate at a local level in small P policy, maybe working with a university or college to help inform a change that they can make in their business practices that could open up doors for more students, but also sometimes it even means that we're working in the legislature. And then we really leverage our communications abilities to raise awareness about the issues that students are facing and some of the possible solutions that can be put in place to help them.
That's great. This is important work. It's also feel-good work, but it's more than that. This has a reverberating impact on our economy if we can find ways to get more people in college and through college. Can you talk a little bit about why your work matters in terms of the economy and in terms of society?
Sure. So thank you for raising that. We recently released a report called the Florida Future Billions Report, and it's looking exactly at that. It's looking at the economic gains, not just for the individuals, but for society and even the state of Florida. If we have more individuals who are transitioning from high school into post-secondary education and completing, there's 4 domains that we looked at in the report. One is college readiness. If we could increase student college readiness, what kind of economic gains would we have? If we increase the number of students who were enrolling in post-secondary education, if we increase the number of students who are completing with a degree or certification, and we looked at parity. Not all students are completing at the same level, so if we could increase the number or bring about greater parity in the numbers of students who are completing, we would see greater economic gains. And so for the state of Florida, if we looked at college completion by itself and we increased it by 10%, we would see almost $8 billion annually to the state in terms of additional tax revenue, societal benefits that could be used for some of the other investments we need to be making across the state of Florida to make our state stronger.
10%, that doesn't sound like a whole lot in terms of numbers, but that's a lot of impact.
It is.
How does the state of Florida rank vis-a-vis other markets and also Miami? How are we doing overall?
There's a lot of pockets of success. For the state of Florida, we have the #1 ranked college and university system in the entire nation. Miami-Dade Public Schools is an A-rated school district. But we know when you begin to sort of dive a little bit more deeper into the data, it's not the same for all. And Helios Education Foundation is very committed to equitable education opportunities and looking at places where, looking at the data that helps to inform where there are some opportunity gaps, where we need to be a little bit more surgical in the student populations that we're serving, and finding those opportunities to really get in there and make sure that all students are achieving at higher levels.
You used the word opportunity gaps. Can you talk about where some of those opportunities are in terms of opportunities to improve our outcomes, but also how Helios in kind of finite terms supports organizations and advances this work?
We've had some conversations about early childhood education, and sometimes it's simply access. There are, I'll call them childcare deserts in some communities where access to any place is almost impossible. Access to high quality is more limited. And there's so much research out there that talks about the importance of brain development in those early days or early years, really trying to find equitable opportunities for all students to be able to, initially engage in high quality early childhood education, where teachers are equipped with the knowledge and skills to be able to, bring about the best learning environments for students so that when they get to kindergarten, when they start our K-12 system, they're ready to learn and they have some of the basic foundations so that they can engage. What we see in K-12 around accelerated coursework is, while there has been an incredible growth in the number of accelerated courses available to students. I know FIU is one of the largest providers of dual enrollment education opportunities for students. AP has grown, IB has grown. When you begin to look at some of the data, not all students are accessing it. We've looked at some data that says even students who have scored at a level that indicates that they are ready, they're not being pushed into, they're not being encouraged to take some of these accelerated courses. But we know when students take those accelerated courses, even if they don't pass the final exam, the coursework itself sets them up for more successful engagement in post-secondary ed. The data tells us that Black students are enrolling in college, for example, at about 42-43%. That's far below their peers. Low-income students, the same, far below their peers. What do we need to be doing for the populations that are sort of consistently underrepresented in our institutions of higher ed, underrepresented in some of this accelerated coursework, underrepresented in early childhood, to make sure that they can have success?
I want to go back to something else you talked about. You talked about enrollment and getting more students to enroll. And what we know, I mean, Miami is an incredible community, big community as well. It's, you know, but when we look at our community, 54% of the population are immigrants. We've also got a large population of people of color. We've got a lot of dynamics. And one of the things that when we think about enrollment in college, it's a complicated process for one. How do you all think about, you know, supporting families as they navigate this process, many times in a different context, or they may not have had the experience even in their home countries? What are the types of things that you all do to help, you know, culturally identify cultural channels to actually connect with people to heighten the likelihood of success?
Yeah. So I would probably highlight a few things. First of all, the understanding the need for navigational capital in sort of unpacking all of the critical steps that families and students need to take to access post-secondary education is one of our key strategies, because you can have all the academic wherewithal, but if you don't understand sort of the basic decisions and the right timing around how things can happen, we often find particularly that low-income, first-generation students end up not sort of maximizing their post-secondary ed opportunity. They get relegated to less selective opportunities, maybe I'll call them what's perceived as less expensive, but what a lot of folks don't understand is that sometimes some of the most expensive, most prestigious opportunities will give some of these students, you know, full rides. But
right.
they, you know, you start at the place of it's so expensive, it's unattainable. So we have made a deep commitment to ensuring that the initiatives that we continue to support are taking into consideration how can they support students through that navigational capital. With that navigational capital. I think the other critical element is taking time to understand the communities. We are not looking for initiatives that are doing at people. We are looking for opportunities to authentically engage in the communities, really understand what their challenges are, you know, where are some of the pain points, and then work with partners who are in those communities to help design things that are responsive to what those families and the communities are saying, what their needs are.
I love that you said working with the community. There's an old African proverb that says that which is not done with us is done to us, right? And one of the things I often talk about here at the Beacon Council, and I work with Opportunity Miami, is that we don't really do anything alone. Because at the end of the day, you've got to have credibility in the communities where you're working, and you've got to have relationships in those communities. Trust allows you to get a lot more done.
Yes.
And it looks like you all have done a lot of great work to establish trust with the community and partners.
Partnership is a key belief of Helios. We absolutely don't believe we can do this alone. You know, at the end of the day, philanthropy is a small part of an organization's overall budget. You know, when you look at how large the Miami-Dade schools budget is, you know, what philanthropy can do, but what we can help is, you know, spark innovation. Philanthropic dollars are flexible. We can be responsive. But our ultimate goal is if we spark change and it proves to be effective, then we would like the institutions to think about ways that they can sustain that change beyond just the philanthropic investment, and really make that systems change that makes whatever's happening long-lasting and way outlast the investment that Helios has made.
I enjoy these podcasts because it allows me to meet interesting people and learn about work that's oftentimes adjacent but not necessarily the same thing that we do. The Beacon Council, our mission is to drive sustainable, inclusive, and competitive growth for Miami's market. And Opportunity Miami, our future-focused initiative, is really reimagining the Miami of 2040 and how can we be optimal in terms of entrepreneurship, resilience, as well as talent. So let's have the magic wand, and now all of a sudden you're in my role of trying to lead the economic development for Miami-Dade County. What advice would you have for us as the Beacon Council? What are the things that we can be doing to advance the goals that we share?
So the first thing I would say is, let me just compliment you on the work that you're already doing. The fact that you have an academic leaders council and you're bringing them together and bringing their expertise to help to inform what is their role in the talent pipeline creation, running alongside what the Beacon Council is elevating as critically important. I think that's an essential step. Too often, they can, business and education can kind of be running in a parallel path, but not necessarily as connected. So you're already taking a wonderful step in that direction. I would say the second thing is really understanding your data. And it's probably not enough to take sort of that high level, really digging down and understanding where's some of the success and how do you build off of some of that success, and where are some of the places where students are still struggling, and what are some of the creative solutions. The third thing I would say is sometimes the solutions are not complicated. I have seen sometimes where folks kind of maybe think too long, but sometimes really just honing in on what is it that those students need. And I'll give you an example out of FIU. They have a lot of students who come in and in their last year struggle because maybe of choices made earlier, they've run out of Pell Grants or financial aid along the way. And it's only going to take a few $1,000s more to get them to the finish line, to get them to complete their degree. FIU recognized this. They created something called the Last Mile Scholarship, and it was really honing in to make sure that students got over that finish line. You have the opportunity to think creatively. There's a lot of programs that help students when they're first entering into college, but what are those opportunities for students once they're already in? We showing and demonstrating the support to make sure they get across the finish line and actually obtain that degree, I think is going to be critically important.
We are Opportunity Miami. We're always trying to figure out how do we optimize opportunity and chances here. What are you seeing in terms of the opportunities for Miami as it relates to the work that you're leading?
So what's great about our Florida Future Billions report, individual communities, individual counties will actually be able to look at the data specific to their county. So on the 4 domains that I mentioned earlier, they'll be able to sort of analyze what would happen if they increased, let's just say, college enrollment, for example. So in Miami-Dade, if you increased college enrollment by 10%, you would see a $2.4 billion benefit to your community. Can you imagine what you could do with $2.4 billion? Yeah, so you talk about supporting entrepreneurship, supporting even some of the infrastructure in Miami. If there was an additional $2.4 billion that Miami-Dade could be using, it could be incredibly beneficial to your community.
Yeah, we've got to figure out how to make that happen. We look forward to working with you and the Helios Foundation
Excellent.
to make that a reality. Thanks. Dr. Stacy Baier with the Helios Education Foundation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.